Hi, my name is Khleif, and I'm the host of the Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing podcast. And every week I interview multifamily rock stars, and we talk about how they've built incredible wealth for themselves and their families through multifamily properties. So hit the like and subscribe buttons to get notified every Monday when a new episode comes out. Let's get to it. Welcome to another edition of Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing. I'm Khleif, and I'm thrilled you're here. And you guys are in for a real treat today. This is an unusual interview in the fact that we're not going to talk about real estate. In fact, what we're going to talk about today is way more important than real estate. And, it's your mindset and psychology. And you guys all know 80 to 90% of your success in anything is your mindset and psychology. And so I've got a really entertaining and intelligent guy on the show today. His name is David Neagle. And David actually hosts a podcast. It's called the Successful Mind Podcast. And I know he's got a co-host, but her name escapes me right now. But he spent a lot of time around Tony Robbins, like I have, Bob Proctor, and these other luminaries in the self-actualization space and the really the motivation and mindset space. And so you guys know by listening to me that that's dear to my heart. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation today. David, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thanks for having me. It's a real honor to be here.
Thank you for that. I loved your bio. I love the fact that you're helping lots of people, really architect their own personal growth. And so let's talk, maybe start with a little bit of your story, and then let's get into it.
Okay, perfect. So let me just tell you how I got interested in this to begin with. I was a high school dropout. I got married very young and had 2 children. And I was creating a ton of responsibility that I did not have the skill set to be able to handle responsibly. I was getting deeper and deeper in debt as we went through the savings and loan crisis in the late 80s and early 90s. I lost my job in sales. I was selling life insurance for Metropolitan Life. I lost all my policies. Everybody was dumping everything back then. My commission went through the floor. And the only other thing I knew how to do is drive a truck and drive a forklift. So I subsequently got a job driving a forklift, working for a food distributor just outside of Chicago. And everything was continuing to get worse. I was not having any luck turning my situation around. I woke up one morning and our car was repossessed. We actually had to file bankruptcy and had to do a pro bono. We couldn't even afford an attorney. Had to go down to the Cook County courthouse myself and do the whole thing. That was a real humiliating experience. And then I literally went to the gentleman that ran the complex where our apartment was, and I said, look, I've had a financial hardship here. I can't pay the rent on this. Would you allow me to get out of the lease early so I can find something? I want to be honorable to what I'm doing with you, but I just don't have the money. And he looked at me right across his desk and he went, nope. And I was like, okay, so that's where we are here. So we had to pack up a truck in the middle of the night and just get out of there. We moved 60 miles away into just a real dump of a town. And it was the only thing that we could afford. We literally were living next door to a drug dealer that used to beat his wife. My wife would call me on the phone at work and she'd be in tears because she'd have to take the kids to the park because this woman would be screaming next door. And I got little kids. So I'm feeling about this big. I don't know what to do. Every day at lunch, I'm sitting there with a calculator and a pen and a paper, and I'm trying to figure out how can I get more raises or how can I put in more hours to help me get out of this. I was making about $20,000 a year, and I was just trying to get to 40. Like if I could get to 40, I was really thinking very immature about this. Like 40,000 is going to change my problem, not realizing how much of the problem is me. And during that time, I actually had an accident, a really bad accident. We went water skiing with my parents and my uncle on the Illinois River, and I got separated from the boat and I got sucked through a dam.
Wow.
I was only one of 2 people that ever survived going through that dam at the time, and they would have people get killed going through it every year. Once you got past this certain area, there was no way to get out. They didn't have a cable running across the water, nothing. And I didn't know the water. And I got too close to it by accident, and it just sucked me through.
Wow.
So I'm at home thinking to myself, what does this mean? What am I going to do with my life? Because the one thing that happened subsequently to that accident is when I was in the hospital, The sheriff's police showed up, the county police showed up, the Army Corps of Engineers who ran the dam, they came, the DNR showed up, and they're all asking me, how did I survive going through this? And I'm laying there because I really can't move, and I'm looking at everybody, and I'm going, I have no idea how I survived. And I said, well, I think one of the reasons I'm alive is that I had a life vest on, but how I didn't get crushed going through those gates and all that, I have absolutely no clue. But they all said the same thing to me. God is watching over you. Somebody up there likes you. There's a reason why you're here. And I had never heard anything like that before. And so I started to believe it, that obviously something was going to start to turn around because God saved me from going through this dam. And I was raised Catholic. I wasn't overly religious or anything like that. And I'm laying at home for a month recovering, and then I recover and I'm back on the dock again. And nothing's changing. It's continuing to get worse. And I'm thinking, what is this? They're like, why didn't I die going through that? There must be something. And it's progressively getting worse. What I had done from a very immature level was I thought to myself, okay, I paid my dues. Now God is going to save me and everything is going to open up and everything's going to change. I had no idea what I was in for. So after 2 years on this dock, one night, my attitude started to get really bad. I was not being nice to people. I wasn't doing a good job at work. I was really in self-pity. I felt totally humiliated and belittled. And it was a February night. I go into work and I'm exhausted to start off with. And I get in trouble twice before I even punch in that night. And my supervisors are just raging at me. We literally get in a screaming match back and forth. And I was totally in the wrong, but not willing to admit it. You know, I was just being a stubborn jerk, frankly. And everything that night progressively went wrong. Nothing was going right. Everything was falling over. Everything that I did had to be redone. I was tired. It was cold. It was February in Chicago. It was bitterly cold. And I literally had just an emotional breakdown in the back of this trailer on the forklift, and I just started crying. And I said, God, please, if there's anything real about you, show me how to get out of this. Show me how to turn it around. I'll do anything. And I swear, honest truth, I heard a voice that said, David, change your attitude. It sounded like somebody, I literally looked around in the trailer because that's what it seemed like. And it was so stark. I stopped crying. I pulled myself together and I started going back to work. And I thought to myself, what is this? What is this attitude thing? Because I had been hearing it since I was a kid. I was a terrible student when I was in school. And the teachers would drag my parents in, you know, for parent-teacher conference or because I got in trouble or because I was failing. And they would say, David's a pretty intelligent guy, but his attitude towards school sucks. And he's never going to get any better till he changes his attitude. Well, my parents had this ingenious way of dealing with that problem. I would get grounded from one report card to the next. And they would literally send me to my room. I take away all of my anything that I like to do, they would take it away. My job was to sit in the room and study until I went to the next report card. And I would just sit in the room and daydream. And I number one, nobody ever actually showed me the skill of how to study. I wasn't interested in anything. So I had a difficult time with any kind of retention. Read the history book, read this chapter. I would read it, my eyes would follow the lines, no retention. So I thought to myself, what is this attitude thing that I'm hearing? And I thought, okay, let me find somebody that is kind of in a place where I would like to be in my life and ask myself the question, what's the difference between him and I? And the person that I was looking at was a man named Mr. Khleif. He owned the company that I worked for, and he had a pretty historic story. And the story was that he started this company in his garage as a very young man, and he built it into this enormous food distributor or importer in the United States, largest food importer in the States. And I thought to myself, somehow because he started it in his garage, I was relating to him in some way. And I thought, what's the difference between him and I? And I got it down to three things. I said, well, he must have loved what he did because I could recognize in myself that I hated what I was doing. I said, okay, he must have loved what he did. he must have done a good job at it because to go from your garage to this huge company, he had to be good at what he was doing. And then there was this other thing that was very stark to me. I grew up with this attitude in my family and the neighborhoods that I lived in on the streets of Chicago, where the man was always against you, right? Employers, rich people, they were no good. They were jerks. They were always going to take from you. They're not nice. They're rude. You name it. Like the typical middle class separation of mind between the haves and the have-nots. This guy, he was always dressed impeccably in a gorgeous suit, but he would give tours of this warehouse because it was one of the first all automated warehouses. And other CEOs would come in and he'd give them these tours. And he never walked past a person in that warehouse without stopping, saying hello, asking how their family was. About 85% of the employees in that warehouse didn't even speak English. He didn't speak Mexican or Spanish. So I'm watching this and I'm thinking to myself, this is not what I was told successful people are. This is a nice guy. He's a kind guy. He treats people well. And I said, that's another problem I have. I don't treat people with respect. So I said, I'm going to act like I love what I do. I'm going to do every job to the very best of my ability, which I had no idea how to do. Nobody ever taught me that. And I'm going to treat people with total respect. And I said, I'm going to start this tomorrow when I get to work, and I work nights. And I said, I'm going to do it for a year and see if it makes any difference. And like there's another voice in my head at the same time, like the two voices on your shoulder type thing. And the other voice is going, this is crazy. This is stupid. Number one, you've never stuck to anything. Number two, changing your attitude's not going to make you any more money whatsoever. And I'm like, nope, I'm going to do this. There was something about how loud that voice was that made some kind of an impression on me. So I began doing that immediately. And in 30 days, my income tripled. It went from $20,000 a year to $62,000. And what was even more fascinating was the opportunity to do that had been around me for 2 years, but I never saw it as an opportunity. And I thought, I've got to find out what this is. Because nothing that was happening, all of a sudden my life started getting totally better after I changed my attitude. And I didn't understand how that could be. So it put me on a path of studying for 7 years. And that's when I met Tony. And Bob Proctor was my mentor for years, and we were in business together. And I just went down this path. And it totally changed my whole life. It changed my world. I went from starting off at a new company, driving a truck, delivering fuel. And when I left that company 7 years later, I was in charge of expanding it across the country. And I never spent another day in school. So it was all self-motivated, self-learning, self-discipline, learning how to do your best, and all of that. And then, so 24 years ago this year, I started Life Is Now, which is the name of my company. And we've been in business for 24 years, working with people that are in business all around the world.
Well, that's quite a story. I will tell you, that's quite a story. And so you talked about these three things, loving what you do, doing a good job at it. And then, if I picked up on this correctly, it was just being kind and being nice and care and taking respectful. A genuine interest and respectful. And yeah, just taking a genuine interest in other people. And I love that. And so, implementing that at that previous company, they saw it and they rewarded you for it, I take it. And you just grew. And so you use that as a metaphor, as an example for people that are in a similar situation. They're in the rat race. They're not happy. They're not making the kind of money they want to make. So talk,
I switched companies. It wasn't that company.
Oh, I got you. You switched. Okay.
I switched.
Okay.
I became aware of an opportunity that had been around me for 2 years that I couldn't see. And as I began to study, because I thought to myself, how could it be that I tripled my income? I mean, nobody in my family made $60,000 a year. The average income where I grew up was about $20,000. I was right in that little niche. So I remember picking up Think and Grow Rich at some point. Somebody gave me the book. And in the introduction, it talks about the sly disguises of opportunity. And basically what it is that most people miss opportunity because their attitude is so bad. They're seeing what they don't want in life instead of what's actually there for them. And I was like, that's it. When my attitude changed, it allowed me to see something that had been there the whole time. but I
No
couldn't
kidding.
see it because I was focused on what was wrong with my life.
Yeah, and guys, those of you listening, if you haven't read Think and Grow Rich, I have literally given away, I would guess at this point, 4,000 copies. I'm not exaggerating at all. Because it's a book, you don't even just read it once, you should read it 2 or 3 times a year. It's like the framework for all self-improvement and self-actualization and quote-unquote motivation since then. So, when you're working with someone in a business person, like certainly a lot of my listeners are aspiring to own their own businesses and get into this multifamily game. Talk about a framework that you would utilize to help them get aligned with who they are and where they want to go. So maybe talk a little bit about some of the topics and or strategies that you would implement when someone comes into your ecosystem.
Generally, people come to us because there's something not working in their business. It's not what they thought it was going to be. They're not earning the amount of money that they thought they were going to earn. They have bigger dreams. They don't know how to get there. And one of the things that where we start with people is helping them expand their psychology and their consciousness into the income that they actually want to earn. And what I point out to them is that everybody has a subconscious financial set point, and it's usually based on how they were raised. So if you are raised middle class, the bizarre thing about that set point is it's based on need and not any number, not any real number at all. Because what we heard growing up was, you don't need that. You don't need this. You can't have everything that you want. Don't you realize how hard your father's working?
Money doesn't grow on trees.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's actually controlling how much money they literally make in their life. And that's one of the first things that we help them change, so that they have a new financial set point that they can expand into.
Yeah, that's critical. The only box that we have is the one we believe. That's the bottom line. I was trying to remember who the thought leader was. I went to a weekend boot camp, but that was the premise of the entire boot camp was, these mental limits we place on our income limit. And oh gosh, I'm having a brain fart. I can't remember who it was, but I want to circle back to something. I remembered what it was. And when all those people told you that God was watching over you and you felt special, and I mentioned to you offline that a lot of times you'll hear about a parent that tells their child that they're brilliant. In fact, Thomas Edison, his schoolmaster said, "You'll never be any good. I want to, I don't come back." And his mom told him that she said he was gifted, and how he took that to heart. Now, I know that you struggled after that, but I'm just curious, did you circle back to that belief system that God did keep you here for a reason?
Yes, I did.
You did.
I believe that there was something about that was true. As I was studying success and reading biographies and all kinds of stories, I really developed the belief that everybody is living some kind of a journey and a story in their life, and everything's happening for a reason. So if I'm here, it's for a reason. It's, whether it's God taking you or you don't think there's anything left of your life, there's a reason why you're actually still here. And I really, not only did I believe it then, I believe it today.
Yeah. Awesome. Let me ask you this, when you, and maybe this is something you coach on, but when you look at times that you're like completely in the zone, you feel like you're really in a sweet spot, things are coming the way you want, what are some of the daily and weekly practices that either you do or you teach people to do to either get there and or stay there?
I've really broken this down over the years. During the pandemic, one of the things that we noticed that people were struggling with tremendously, we actually set up a free call that I did twice a week for like 14 or 15 weeks. And it was all about how to think during a crisis, to keep their minds straight so that they didn't go out of business and that type of thing. And then I created a program out of that where I worked with people for every morning. And so I created something that I had been doing for years called the Sacred 7, which is 7 things that you do mindset preparedness before you start work every day. Like once you wake up and you're fully awake, the first thing that you do is you get your mind right about your day. Most people just walk into their day and they walk in based on whatever mood that they're in or how much rest that they got or didn't got, or their frustrations from yesterday. And it was actually one of the things that Tony's taught. I just changed it a little bit for me, and I called it the Sacred Seven. And the idea would be that the number one, the foundational reason for success is consistency. If you're never going to have the success that you want if you're not consistent. And working with thousands of people over the years, one of the things that I found that caused the most problems, including the up and down of people's incomes, was the inconsistency of their behavior and the actions that they took on a regular basis. So I work with them with the idea of this. Let's reframe that belief in your mind, and let's get you to be consistent where that's on autopilot, so that you're not struggling every day with do it or don't do it. It's about what are you going to do today, and how are you going to show up as a leader to be able to do those things. So we did it, like we took everybody for 90 days and we put them through this every morning, 7 days a week, not for 90 days. And it literally started changing that so that was no longer an issue for them. After they got rid of it and developed it as a habit where it was on autopilot, then they could actually step into the things that they need to do and be successful there. Because, I mean, as you know, anybody who's in business, it's constant change, right? It's change, it's adapting, it's learning new things, it's understanding the changes that happen in your environment, your work environment, the country that you live in. But if you can't get yourself to do the ththings that need to be done, it's like you're failing before you even get out of the gate. So that's the place that we start with everybody.
You call it the Sacred Seven. I mean, I know, I think I mentioned to you, I've had Hal Helrod on the show who has the Miracle Morning, which is maybe has some similarities to what you're doing, where you exercise, you meditate or pray, you journal, and even make declarations for how the day's going to go. I will tell you, and in fact, that was actually one of the questions I was going to ask you, if you have any morning habits that help you stay in the zone. That's where I was going with that. And, like me, I do a little exercise in the morning where I just do gratitude, and I do gratitude for the things that I have, my wife, my kids, my foundation, my students, and then I do gratitude for the things that I want as if I already have them. And, I joke about this, but it's true. Sometimes I get emotional being grateful for things I don't even have yet. And, and people make fun of that. But the bottom line is this is how I was successful, and
Absolutely.
how I recovered from losing everything. But, so when you're coaching someone, are you, a lot of, there's a real misconception around coaching versus therapy. Like therapy, I would equate that to looking in the rearview mirror. Coaching, and you just tell me if I'm right or wrong with this, at least as it relates to your world. In your world, is coaching looking forward?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
That's a great analogy. It is looking in the rearview mirror. I think therapy is great for people that just don't know how to make peace with their past or understand what they went through in their life. But coaching's different. Coaching is about you already have the power to get up off the couch. Now we're going to show you what to do. Therapy is you can't get off the couch, and proverbially, and then somebody's going to help you get into a part of your life where you can actually take action. So it's a major difference.
Right. So, what are you excited about right now as far as it relates to you, your business, your students? What excites you?
One of the things that excites me is the idea, because of the awareness and because of technology, the ability people have to be more successful today. Even back when I first started and the internet was in its infancy, it was really difficult to be successful. You had to have a storefront, you had a lot of money going in an investment. It was hard for people to get started. Today, they don't have to leave their living room to be successful based on whatever it is that they're doing. But there's more opportunity for more people, which for me, one of the things I love about that is I think we need to consistently work on getting the world out of poverty and into the idea of abundance. And we now have the ability to actually be able to do that. That excites me like you would not believe.
Yeah. Now, I just did a clip on the power of abundance and the importance of abundance. And, in fact, I was part of my keynote speech in Charlotte just a few days ago. And, how successful people have an abundance mindset, and really the poor have a limiting mindset or a mindset that there are limitations and super important. And there's a great book called Abundance, actually. It's a fantastic book about the topic. So let me ask you this, kind of following up on the question I just asked you. What inspires you? How do you get your inspiration?
Inspiration and motivation are interesting words for me because it's not,
Okay.
it's something that I just decided that I'm going to be. It's not something that I mess around with, like today I feel inspired or I don't. I made a decision a long time ago, and I was taught this, by the way, by my mentor, that you're going to make a decision of what it is that you're going to do with your life, right? I know I'm going to have days where I don't feel well, and there's going to be days when I do feel well. Whether or not that affects my performance is not an option for me. I want to do the best that I can regardless of what I'm doing. Now, that best could vary. Like if you're really sick, it's not going to be as best as it was when you feel great. But my whole life is about, I wake up every morning with this question in my mind. How can I help this person? So I developed that a long time ago with the idea that my job is to get up and see how I can be a benefit to the world every day. And I do that by looking at people and going, how can I help? It's not about making sales. It's not about self-preservation. Everything that you'll get if you understand how to help other people and you're not trying to get something from them, but you're trying to contribute in some way. Everything that you want will come back to you.
That's just the way, that's the law of the universe, God, whatever you believe, what you give, you get. I can't tell you how many times that's been the case in my life. Let me ask you this. Do you have any favorite authors or favorite quotes that you, that keep you on the right path? Any quotes you lean on from time to time? Any authors that you like to circle back to? Obviously, Napoleon Hill, no brainer there. But anything else come to mind when I ask that particular question?
Yes. So there's I'll tell you what the books are. Napoleon Hill's one of them. The other one is Raymond Hollywell, and the book is called Working with the Law. Let me see what books we got here. So my book is
Working with the Law. Is that actually a self-actualization book? It's not legal law like the.
No, it's a book about universal law.
Gotcha. Okay.
Universal law. This book by Robert Russell called You Too Can Be Prosperous. This book on quantum leaps, it's called U Squared by Price Pritchett.
Oh, that's a great book. Yeah, U Squared is good.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I've got As a Man Thinketh here, which I think is the best book ever written on personal responsibility, right? But those, especially Working with the Law. The Science of Getting Rich is also a great book, but Working with the Law is really interesting in the fact that there's one statement in there that basically points out this universal fact. You cannot have a desire or a need, basically a desire or a need, without the thing that you desire or need being there within the realm of you. Because what you're doing is you're physically reacting to something that's already here. Nothing's one-sided. So it's basically the law of polarity. Everything in the universe has an opposite side to it. When you have a desire for something, you're resonating with something that's already here in the universe. And you're resonating with it because it's supposed to be part of whatever it is that you're actually doing. If you understand that, and then you understand how to stay in the positive expectation of that coming in, what you mentioned with gratitude. Gratitude keeps you in the positive emotional expectation of whatever it is that you desire. Not only will you start to see it because that's what you're looking for, but you will manifest it in your life every single time.
Yeah, no, gratitude is the most powerful emotion we have available to us. It lowers our blood pressure, strengthens our immune system, brings us closer to our spirituality. It's impossible to be fearful and grateful at the same time. It's impossible to be angry and grateful at the same time. And it's how you bring everything you want into your life. And so there's no greater emotion that we have available to us in our lives, in my opinion.
And everything in life is a lesson. Right? Yeah. I don't look at things as being good or bad. I look at them as everything's a lesson. Everything's here to teach you something, and your life is about something. I truly believe we were born to be successful. It is the idea behind of all life. Why would life even exist if it wasn't designed to be successful in and of itself? And that's the same thing with human beings.
Agreed. So, you've had some pretty extraordinary mentors like me as well. I've had some great, incredible, extraordinary mentors as well. Talk about some of, if I were to ask you, what's the best piece of advice you've ever received? Does anything come to mind? Or if you've got more than one, that's fine too.
Yeah, well, so there's a couple. The best piece of advice I ever received was from my mentor, Bob Proctor, when he actually taught me how to make a decision. It was the first thing that he taught me, and it actually took me a couple of years to really learn it, because I was not making a decision from what I desired in life. I was making a decision based on what I think I could accomplish or what I don't want to happen. And I had no idea that that's how I was thinking about things. And he was pointing out to me, he goes, this should be taught to school kids. And you're never taught how to make a decision in your life. The other thing is that people will make a decision, and tomorrow when something goes wrong, they change the decision. So he taught me how to make a decision, keep the decision, follow through on the decision. I mean, heck, Napoleon Hill devoted a whole chapter to decision in Think and Grow Rich. There was that. Tony helped me out in a big way. In 2004, I had a people we were in business with embezzled $5 million from the company. And Tony actually taught me how to turn that around and turn it around fast. And the idea was that he kept me out of blame. He showed me how to accept responsibility for what it was that I actually went through, and he got me focused on where I was going and not what happened. And then of course he also told me how to manage the difficult parts of that. And you had that big loss in your life also, so much bigger than mine, but you still have to learn how to manage getting through that, from emotional aspect to, I got to pay bills, I lost this money, there's people I'm accountable to. He taught me how to get through all of that, which allowed me to turn around in a year.
And then ultimately the meaning you place on it, because life is about meaning, right? And we all have had negative things happen to us, and we can make a choice to have an empowering meaning on top of something that really, from outward appearances was very, negative and painful and harmful. So let me ask you this: you've been around a while, and during this, now starting whatever it was, 24, 25 years ago, when you really got into this part of what you do, as you were learning and growing and helping, talk about any aha moments that you had as in this progress where you're like, okay, now I get it. Maybe you were working with someone and you saw a transformation or something. If anything comes to mind. I know I didn't prepare you for any of these questions.
Yeah. So I can tell you about two ones from a financial perspective that blew my mind. The first one was that when I started my business, I had an agreement with someone to make $5,000 a month. That was our house bills, $5,000. And the agreement was basically this, that if I go under $5,000, I quit, go back to work. So I was in business to make money. I wasn't going to put the family through any kind of craziness. That was the deal. I said okay to that deal. So I quickly got us up to about $52,000 a year or so in that thing. My mentor used to talk to me in monthly income. He would always be like, David, you want to turn your annual income into your monthly income. And he would say, what in your life would change if you could turn your annual income into your monthly income? And I just kept thinking to myself, man, I would love to earn $50,000 a month and not $50,000 a year. And so I set that as a goal. And the first month I had it all worked out in my mind as how I was going to do this. And I went after it. At the end of the month, I was talking to him and he said, how did you do? And I was worse off than when I started. And I was like, I don't get it. And he said to me, David, it's easier to make $50,000 a month than it is to make $50,000 a year. And I was like, oh, shut up. It's easier for you. I thought he was just, screwing with me. Instead, I decided to go after it again the next year. And I'm thinking, I didn't work hard enough. I got to double down, do all this stuff. The second month was just as bad. And again, he said to me, he goes, making $50,000 a month is easier than making $50,000 a year. He goes, let me ask you a question. Why would you work all year for $50,000? He's like, I wouldn't even get out of bed for $50,000, and you're working all year for it. And I'm like, why is he teasing me during this. And when I got off the phone with him, I was pissed. I was angry. And I said to myself, oh, he's serious. Like, it really is easier. That's the message. And I thought, okay, if it's easier to make $50,000 a month, in my scenario, what would be the easiest way for me to make $50,000 a month? And I thought that would be have one coaching client at 50 grand. And I didn't think that I could go to 50 grand at that time, right? Because this is right after I started. I said, but I can raise it to 15,000. And I earned the 50,000 in 2 weeks right after I did that. And no kidding. That was like, I got it. I totally got it. I mean, and it was such a shift in my psychology, and it never went backwards.
That's the operative piece of that, is that it was a shift in your psychology, is that you didn't believe you could do it. And whether you believe you can or you believe you can't, you're right? So it was ties right into the first thing that you teach someone when you coach them is to expand their income limit, right? And it's kind of the same thing that happened to you. I guess that's because, since that was so profound, maybe that's why that's the first thing you focus on as well. This makes sense now. So let me ask you this. When you're coaching, you coach business owners, do you advise them on the best sort of people they should align themselves with? Do you ever have a conversation? Or just speak to that a little bit, if you would.
Yeah, so we teach them from a leadership perspective how they need to construct their team, and the idea that they want A players. And we teach them how to find A players, how to keep A players, how they should be an A player. And then it's also about the strategic alliances that they make with partnerships in the world. Like, the old saying, you're the equivalent, your income's the equivalent of your 5 closest friends. There's a lot of truth to that, right? Are you hanging around with people that make more money than you? Are you learning from people that have more skill than you? They earn more money, they got more reach, whatever. And that's part of helping them grow in that situation. So yes, the answer is yes. That's how we do that.
Nice. So, this is a question I typically ask operators that have thousands and thousands of doors, but I've just since it popped up in my radar here, I'm going to ask it just to see if it comes up with anything for you. If you could go back in time and tell 18-year-old self, 18-year-old David, something with what you know now, what might you say and what might you do differently, if anything, in this trajectory of yours?
Understanding that everything that happens in a person's life is necessary to be the person that they are and to be the person that they're going to become. Every time I get this question, my answer is I wouldn't change anything, because I don't know what the outcome would be if I actually went back and changed it. I needed to learn the lessons.
Yeah. And
however,
it builds on itself, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep. But from an emotional standpoint, I would go back and tell myself to learn how to have relationships in a healthy way is faster than I learned how to do it. Because I did not grow up in a household that had a healthy marriage. I did not know how to have healthy relationships. I didn't know how to pick healthy partners in my life. So that created a big issue for me. And it was all my fault. I just didn't know how to do this. It took me a long time to actually figure that out, because when you grow up in a situation, you don't really know that you're in that kind of a situation until you see something that contrasts it. That's what I would tell myself, to get that cleaned up.
Same here, brother. Exact same answer if somebody asked me that question in that vein, for sure. So what's next for you, man? What's next on your horizon?
Number one, we do a lot of work with in 2 areas that it's kind of in flux right now. One is we feed about 55,000 people a year that are hungry.
Cool.
We provide meals. Tony got me doing that.
Yeah, I do the same thing. It's
a fantastic thing. One of the things that we want to do is we want to start providing some kind of opportunity for children to begin to learn business before they get to be adults, and help with their mindset. So that is something that we're working into. We haven't started that yet, but it's a goal of ours to actually get there. And we just keep expanding what we do. We love what we do. I've got a great team of people. And our job is how can we reach more people and effectively? effectively, not just reach them, but actually how can we really make a difference in other people's lives?
Love it, brother. Absolutely love it. And I mean, you and I come from the same framework. Like I said, as I told you, I spent 20 years with Mr. Robbins as well, and I've fed somewhere between 140 and 150,000 children over the last 23 years, and it's that's what life's about. So really, I think that's a great place to kind of put a bow on this. And so, guys, check out his podcast. It's called the Successful Mind Podcast. You've also got the website lifeisnowinc.com. I saw that for your coaching program, but I don't typically allow people to promote on this show, but this is really helpful. And I know, I believe in mentors. I've had mentors and coaches my entire life. Michael Jordan had 5 coaches at the height of his career. The most successful people on the planet have coaches. And so, and that's what we do in our program. We also have high performance coaching in my Warrior program as well. But, well, listen, I appreciate you coming on, my friend. I've enjoyed this, and I look forward to continuing this relationship.
Absolutely. I can't wait to have you on my podcast. Have a great day.
All right. Thanks. You too, buddy. So one other quick thing. We encounter so many people that are frankly frustrated. They're looking in the mirror and they're frustrated that they haven't been able to escape the rat race. They haven't been able to build cash flow to the point where they're able to have financial and time freedom with their families. And maybe they see other people buying real estate and creating, incredible cash flow, and they think, well, it's just scary. Buying apartments is intimidating. And I get it. See, that's why we created our Warrior Mentorship Program. They're our coaching students, and they've had extraordinary results. My students, I've been teaching about 5 years, and they own upwards of 140,000 units now that we know of, right? And we feel like it's just getting going. Now, we're looking to grow this group and really take it to the next level. And honestly believe that the greatest transfer of wealth could be upon us right now with this current economic environment. Everything's going on sale. So we're looking for people who want to follow a proven framework, really like a blueprint or a map, literally step by step. And then they're able to leverage our systems and our incredible network to raise money and equity, to find deals and close those deals and build partnerships, really nationwide. So if you're interested in finding out more about how you can become more in our incredible network and take advantage of the unbelievable opportunities that are upon us, you can apply to my Warrior Mentorship Program by texting the word CRUSH to 72345, or you can go to mentorwithrod.com. And what we'll do is we'll set up a call so you can check us out and we can check you out and see if it's a fit. Now, again, you can go to mentorwithrod.com or text the word CRUSH to 72345 to apply, and we will speak soon.